Brawling system removed. Rejoice, boys! The brawling system's gone. Thank God. All the self-healing can stop being absolutely destroyed by team healers being OP.
Today, we become legends.
Hey, my name's Inter. Welcome back to the channel, and we just got a new blog post on the Season of Hope that's going to be, the patch notes will be tomorrow. It'll be launching 28th of March, I think, so the Tuesday after the patch notes, which are going to be dropping tomorrow or Wednesday. We also got a new trailer, which showcased Chel's visual design, which looks incredible. She thick, boy. She thick. So we're going to be getting a new, she's going to be a healer, if you didn't know that already. You know, Chel very associated with healing anyway, but also the data mining confirms that as well. It's going to be a healer, probably a mage, that's what data mining says, but could be a guardian based on her visual design. They often do like to go for, you know, that thicker design, I guess, when they're going for guardians as opposed to mages. You know, just to kind of confer the gameplay playstyle of them. You know, if they're bigger, they're generally more tanky. That's kind of like how it goes. But yeah, the big piece of information we have is this blog post, which is going to be going over a bunch of like the Conquest visual changes, Conquest gameplay changes, general changes, and a bunch of the new stuff that's going to be coming in the Season of Hope. And that's going to span 10.3, 10.4, and 10.5. Chel won't be launching in 10.3 as far as I know, because the trailer said launches the March 28th for the Season of Hope, but then it said Chel is coming in April, so presumably Chel in 10.4, which makes sense. Then releasing 3 gods back to back would have been pretty insane, and then would there be like a drought of gods for the rest of the season probably, because what, 10.6 will be when Charon launches, most likely. So we'll be getting like 10.3 as a break patch, 10.4 is Chel, 10.5 as a break patch, 10.6 is Charon, and then from there on, you know, whatever. So yeah, let's just jump into this blog post. I've not actually given it a read myself. Well, I have like a very quick skim over it, but I've not given anything an in-depth read. So it's going to be like my raw reaction to this and give you guys the news and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so here we go. SMITE Year 10 Season 2 update, which is obviously the Season of Hope, 10.3 launch. We are doing things a little differently this year. A new season used to only happen once a year. Oh, we know all this, we know all this. Going to be 4 seasons. There's a roadmap release, all that kind of stuff. We want our seasons to have strong themes that communicate the story of the SMITE universe, just as well as they communicate the gameplay goals. Surtur and his new ally Motikaras are on a rampage, growing their army numbers by day with more mythical beasts, but they will not go unchallenged. The gods are starting to plan their counterattack, and a radiant newcomer, Chel, will soon arrive to help. The beacon of hope for the gods of SMITE. And yeah, we know Chel's going to be a healer, so they're actually going to be making some major healing changes in the launch of the Season of Hope. So healing in SMITE will receive a deep balance pass, adjusting the core systems around it, as well as a huge number of individual gods and items. Rewards for slaying another god on the battleground will be tuned to be more favourable to the gods with lower XP and gold, and the Conquest map will gain a new objective that provides greater rewards to the teams that are further behind in XP and gold. So a bunch of stuff in just one paragraph here. So healing in SMITE will receive a deep pass, adjusting the core systems around it. This, I feel like, has kind of been a long time coming. You know, healing has been a problem in SMITE, mainly team group healing, not necessarily self-sustain, has been a big problem in SMITE. They introduced the global anti-heal, where if you're not in combat, you get anti-heal by, I believe it's 40%. And that really hurts a lot of, like, self-heals that you just use to passively sustain out of combat, like Armor 1 and stuff like that. And it's received a bit less fanfare recently, but, like, back in, I think, either start of Season 9 or end of Season 8 or something, there was, like, a big uproar about healing and stuff like that. My personal suggestion back then was to make it shields, or, like, most of it shields. You know, maybe you can still give some healing, maybe the god that's using the AoE heal can heal themselves, but on teammates it's just a shield or something like that, because that way it's temporary health and you can't just disengage, press health 3-4 times and be back at full health, because it's just going to be a shield that will wear off. But it's still really good as like in combat sustain, because it is still sustaining, because if you take damage, you don't take the damage essentially. And so that was my suggestion, but I don't know if they're going to have more info on what they're going to be doing further down on this blog post, or if we're going to see that in the 10.3 patch notes, which will be tomorrow, which I'll be covering as well. So be sure to subscribe to the channel for that if you want to catch the news as it drops and my thoughts on it. But yeah, also going to be a number of individual gods and items changed as well. That's just, you know, that's a season launch kind of thing. Mid-season is kind of, I guess, what they're modeling these new seasons off of. What we used to have, like the mid-season patches where they change a bunch of stuff. Rewards for slaying another god on the battleground, blah, blah, blah. This is major anti-snowballing, which is interesting, because I feel like the game isn't that snowbally right now. My games are going relatively long, probably a bit longer than they were in previous seasons, so it's interesting that they're introducing anti-snowballing. You know, probably they'll be tuned to be more favourable towards gods with lower XP and gold, so shutdown bounties are going to go up, I guess, if you're quite far behind. Shutdown bounties are already a lot, you know, you can get like 700-800 gold by like shutting someone down, that's quite fed. And the Conquest map will gain a new objective that provides greater rewards that are further behind in XP and gold. That's pretty interesting, you know. It's always harder to take an objective if you're behind. You need to make sure you got hell awards, because if the enemy team comes in and they can win that fight, which usually they can if you're behind, you're going to have a problem kind of sneaking it. So depending on how they do this, that could be very risky to take as the team that's behind. Because obviously it will be huge if you can get it, because it provides greater rewards if you're further behind in XP and gold, but you know, if that gets stolen, you're still giving extra stuff to the enemy team and you might lose the fight afterwards or something like that. So could be very risky depending on how they implement it. You know, maybe it spawns in the team's half that it's like, maybe it's not in their half, but like it's slightly skewed towards their half if they're the team that's behind when it spawns, so that it can like be a bit easier to take for them. I don't really know about that. So they have a core structure laid out here for what's going to be happening. So Season of Hope launch in March. Significant Conquest changes. There's going to be new environment art, jungle pathing and lane shape changes, and new mechanics and objectives. We've seen already there's going to be a new objective. And significant general gameplay patches. Overarching theme or new mechanic going to be introduced. I don't know if this is for... Yeah, it's for all new season launches. So it seems like with the Season of Whatever and the Season of Whatever for the final 2 seasons of the year. We haven't got names for those, I don't think, yet. These are going to also be, like, happening. So we're going to be getting new mechanics and, you know, new objectives, potentially. You know, new mechanics or objectives and a bunch of all this stuff in every new season, which is going to be pretty hype. Many items are gods adjusted, you know, as is usual with a mid-season patch, and new items as well. So new items is pretty cool. We obviously got a ton of new items with the Year 10 launch, so it'll be interesting to see what they can bring to shake up the meta with some new items in this patch. They're going to be kicking off a big Smite event, new battle pass, ranked softs, reset, and new split, all the usual kind of stuff we would expect, you know, new events, new battle passes, all that stuff. This is just the first update of the Season of Hope. There are plenty of more gameplay features on the way, like Chel, Index Goddess, who will arrive in April. And so down here we have some of the new art for the Conquest map. Got some cool, like, plants that look like they're kind of luminescent. There's water around, which, you know, it's kind of... Chel is a little bit water-themed in a way, so kind of themed for her around the Conquest map. And one here as well with, you know, more of these kind of luminescent plants. The trees also look like they have kind of veins on them that are glowing as well. Looks really sick. Reminds me a little bit of like Blackreach and Falmer Caves and stuff like that in Skyrim, where it's got, you know, Nirnroot and that kind of stuff where it glows, like foliage that's glowing. Looks very fantasy. I like it a lot. I've always liked when they go more fantasy with the maps. So, Conquest changes are an important part of every season. This game mode is our primary competitive mode, and therefore it requires constant balance attention, as well as gameplay change-ups to keep things fresh, of course. For 10.3, we have a variety of role balance goals. We are going to be making some adjustments to multiple spawn timers, camp XP and gold values, and the map as a whole. Interesting. So the map has a variety of art changes, including a new skybox. That should be cool. New map lighting would make sense for how they're adding like glowing foliage and stuff. Pools of water and, yeah, glowing foliage. Adjust the start of the game and decrease the available XP and gold at level 1. Interesting. So currently, with the starts people are doing, you just hit level 2. Assuming duo lane does all 3 buffs, and then obviously... mid, jungle, solo, split, all 3 buffs, you hit level 2, but you only just hit level 2, so if they're going to be reducing the XP and gold available at level 1 significantly, most likely we're going back to when you start in lane, you're not level 2, which personally I'm not a fan of. I like being level 2 when like any of the fighting actually happens. It just makes like people with ridiculous level 1 abilities or not great clear at level 1, like it makes it really polarized, whereas when you have access to 2 abilities, there's more fight potential and there's it feels a little bit more balanced when you get to lane. So I'm not huge on this one, to be honest. Require junglers to spend more time jungling or risk sacrificing farm. So maybe new camps, or camps are harder to take, camps respawn faster, something like that, because currently there is a decent amount of jungle farm available, but there's probably less than previous seasons, to be honest, especially at the start of the game, obviously, when there's literally just secondary speed up and that's it. And so junglers basically have to go mid or gank a lane pretty much, unless they want to go like secondary speed and then try and do something, but you have to split a mid wave and then do your secondary speed to hit level 3. If you just run straight to secondary speed, you don't hit level 3. You'd have to do like green if the support didn't do it, or split a wave with someone to hit level 3. So basically, you're forced into doing a level 2 gank for the most part, or at least interacting at level 2 as the jungler. So maybe they'll be farming up a little bit more, potentially more ability to hit level 3 without splitting or doing a gank. But they also say here they're going to be decreasing the XP and gold gain of the jungle role, which does make sense because junglers were getting quite fed and controlling the game, even more so than the jungle role normally does. Decrease XP and gold gain of the mid role, but by a smaller amount than jungle. Yeah, again, this makes sense. Mids, I don't even know if it was necessarily that mids getting fed was the problem. I think it's mainly that mid items are insane right now. You know, Book of Thoth took a major nerf, but before that nerf, Book of Thoth was so insane with 10 flat pen and like however much power that item has when you fully stack it. Tablet of Destinies, obviously. Mage flat pen is just better than physical flat pen at the moment because they all have 15, whereas most physical flat pen options, I think, except for brawlers, have a 10 flat pen instead of 15. So it just feels like mage items were really strong at the moment, and not necessarily that the mid roll was getting super fed, but Maybe they can do this and also nerf some of the mid items, and that can bring them more in line. Because we were very much in a mid-jungle meta. Solo kind of didn't matter unless you got really fed. Support, just doing support things as usual. And to be honest, ADC, as much as I like to complain about it, ADC was relatively weak for most of the game. It's only when you get to late game that they have like full build online with 95% crit, kins, 20% pen or more, 2.5 attack speed, all that bullshit. It's mainly like late game when they became like pretty strong. Add more XP and gold value to the solo lane. We love this, boys, especially in contestable value. Again, really good. I always love contestable objectives in solo. You know, silver buff is really cool, totem obviously really cool, because solo is the role of constantly fighting people and constantly making trades, sustaining or playing the long game, and contestable objectives are always way better for that. And make the lane more lethal to make winning the lane more possible and impactful. Yeah, I'm down for this. I'm down for this. At the moment, depending on how you build and what people are playing, it can be very lethal because a lot of people go high damage in solo lane because you kind of have to at the moment. Going full tank just makes you a bit useless late game. But yeah, depending on the item changes, that could be a positive change. Add a new objective to the Gold Fury side to give duo lane more strategic impact, but keep their farm about the same. Yeah, I think farm about the same is kind of fine. I think if anything, it could maybe be slightly increased. That's risky because you don't want to give hunters too much farm or they get to that insane power spike that I just mentioned like too early, and then that becomes a major problem. But so I assume this is going to be the new objective where the team that's behind gets more value from it. So a new objective on the Gold Fury side is going to be near duo lane. The jungle pathing will be adjusted to be easier to navigate, especially around all 4 back happy camp quadrants, allowing for easier rotations and more clearly visible team fights. Yeah, I mean, I think the jungle was kind of fine to navigate, but I assume what this means around the 4 back happy quadrants, it's not going to be one gigantic wall that's like impassable around the back happy camps. Most likely they're going to have either like two kind of corridors coming off, one that leads towards solo, one that leads towards mid, or on the other side towards duo and mid, or maybe like one straight out the back or something, just so you can kind of roam around those back camps a little bit more without having to like run around that massive wall that's like no breaks in it. So yeah, this will be really good, I think. Definitely that will help a lot. The data is clearly showing that junglers and mids are receiving more farm than carries, while solo gets less than carries. These changes will aim to equalize everyone closer to the point where carries currently reside. Support is still the lowest farm and consistent with previous years. Yeah, support's always lowest farm. That just kind of makes sense. To be honest, I haven't really noticed solos getting less farm than carries. It seemed about the same, and obviously jungles and mids were getting really fed. But I feel like solo was kind of fine in terms of farm, dude. But I mean, I'm not going to complain. Like, the main problem with solo right now is that you just can't live in late game teamfights. You just get obliterated because everyone shreds in modern Smite. Every single damage roll just absolutely obliterates you in teamfights. Farm didn't really seem to be the problem, but I mean, I guess more farm means you can be slightly more ahead in items than the mid and jungle. Obviously, the ADC will still shred you in teamfights, and they should. That's how it works. But hopefully if you're, you know, maybe a little bit more fed, you have a little bit more of a lead on mid and jungle, you won't get quite as obliterated. Obviously, once you reach level 20 and full build, it's probably going to be the same unless they make major item changes and stuff. But yeah, I guess more farm is always welcome. So moving on to general gameplay features, these won't be Conquest specific. The general balance of this season focuses on a single concept, but in order to address that concept, we have to adjust a huge amount of the game. The topic is healing, so it looks like they are going more in depth on what they're going to be doing here. And there is no shortcut to adjusting it. Yeah, they've tried to adjust it with shortcuts like the global anti-heal, nerfing AoE healing on its own. None of it's really worked, to be honest. Historically, healing in Smite has been very powerful, even when it's not perceived to be part of the current meta, yeah, especially in the pro scene. When it is perceived to be part of the meta, it's considered frustratingly overpowered, absolutely. We have taken smaller steps to curb this in the past, but for this season we took the time to do a long requested adjustment to healing. So the healing update. All god healing from abilities will be decreased by roughly 30%. This doesn't sound like AoE team heals, this sounds like all heals, which, I don't know. I feel like turning down self-healing isn't really that much of a problem. I feel like it's mainly the big AoE team heals, but I suppose depending on what else they have here, it could be good. Healing gods and items will now have more utility and additional effects. This is really good though. I was talking about the shielding at the start of the video, that was kind of like my thoughts on it back when it was like a big problem in like late season 8, early season 9, whenever that meta was. You know, having additional buffs, having characters be able to give utility to their team without necessarily just healing them back up to full. I don't know why this doesn't really do this more, to be honest. This just makes a lot of sense. You know, have them be supportive aspects, not just I'm going to heal you to full. I think that makes a lot of sense. Healing abilities will no longer scale with power, but with level or items only. Do I like this? I don't think I do, man. That just seems like really simplifying things a lot. Also, it will make Guardian healers like really strong unless they make major changes to that. I mean, the big team heals didn't really scale high anyway. Most of the big team heals only scaled at like 30% or something like that, so I suppose it's not that bad. I think also Guan heal already did this, right? I'm pretty sure Guan heal already did just scale with levels into the ability, and that's it. Brawling system removed. Rejoice, boys! The brawling system's gone. Thank God. All the self-healing can stop being absolutely destroyed by team healers being OP. Lifesteal will also be reduced by roughly 30% game-wide. Okay. Again, I don't really know if lifesteal and self-sustain was the major problem here, because that's a lot. I assume this isn't going to, you know, stack on top of that, so basically just everything is going to be reduced 30%, including lifesteal. Most gods and items will be buffed to compensate for the reductions in healing or lifesteal. Oh, well, why are you doing it then? Or are they buffing them in other areas, I guess, you know, so like Hercules, for example, is going to get buffs to like Driving Strike's cooldown or whatever. I guess that kind of makes sense. I thought they were saying they were going to buff up the actual base amount of the healing to make it, you know, negate this, which would be pointless. But yeah, I guess they're going to be buffing them in different areas, so they're not quite as reliant on their healing. In most cases, we expect healing gods to be stronger overall, but heal for less. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of okay with this. It's mainly just like the big heal that's the problem. I mean, this is talking about healers specifically from my part, because I really don't think self-sustain and lifesteal is that big of a problem anyway. True healers will not be supported in Smite. We have strong feedback and evidence to suggest that excessive healing will cause balance and frustration issues, even if the healer sacrifices damage output and/or protections and HP. Healers in their current state have been over-nerfed, and we hope to see that this set of adjustments makes them better overall, even while healing less. Yeah, this should just be healthier for the game in general. I think all of this so far sounds really good for team healers. My only big issue for it really is maybe the scaling thing, where they no longer scale with power. It just seems like simplifying a little bit. And also the fact that it's going to be reducing everything. Lifesteal, self-healing, team healing. Although I suppose, thinking about it, the brawling system's gone, so the 40% you were normally getting reduced by, it's sort of going to be reduced by 30% instead. So technically, I suppose self-heals that you would use out of combat, like Ammo 1, is actually going to be getting slightly more healing. So maybe it's not that bad. Yeah, actually, to be fair, thinking about this, I kind of didn't take into account the fact that the brawling system's removed. This is basically just to compensate for that. Brawling used to be 30%, it's now 40%, but yeah, so actually, lifesteal, wait, how did lifesteal work? You didn't get anti-brawling from lifesteal anyway, did you? Or is brawling only with gods? I actually don't even know. Let me know down below. Because if brawling is not with gods, and you don't enter brawling state when hitting minions, then lifesteal will be getting a buff when you're just healing with it passively out of combat. And also the self-heals as well will be getting a slight buff when you're using them out of combat. So yeah, actually this isn't too bad, thinking about it. The changes to heal scaling and the introduction of these new items will give healers more options on how they want to build, potentially allowing for viability in support and solo roles by increasing their potency in a variety of ways, not just healer numbers. Yes, this could be interesting. If they're introducing, like, maybe even a new tree or something, maybe they throw Rod of Asclepius into it, maybe even Cad Shield, but that would have a tree that crosses physical and magical. So I'm not sure they want to do that, but maybe they create like a custom healing tree that adds like different effects to your heals. So maybe like all your heals give a bit of movement speed, or all your heals also shield for a little bit. Stuff like that, where you can, you know, a bit like Lotus Sickle, I guess they could also throw that onto that tree. So maybe they will have like a couple of items from that tree, and then a couple of new items, make a whole healing tree or something like that. And then you can like kind of itemize your healer in a certain way to give different effects. This sounds a lot more fun than just like standard healing that we've had so far. Okay, so gameplay feature list, approximately 70 gods receiving balance changes. That is huge. That's over half the roster they're going to be receiving balance changes. Approximately 80 items receiving balance changes. How many items even are there? Probably can't be much more over 100, right? Including tier 1s, tier 2s, starters, and relics, interestingly. You know, probably going to see Ankh with some changes of some kind. 5 new items, 5 reworked items, kill bounty and shutdown changes that we discussed before, addition of a new passive item effect, shield reduction. This will decrease the size of the HP shield on the affected god. They're doing it, man. I think they're doing it. They're going to make most healing into shields by the sounds of this. You know, or maybe they're going to have like a really strong item on this, you know, healer tree. I'm saying that in air quotes because it might not be a healer tree. I just think that's a cool idea. That potentially either turns your HP into shield, turns your healing into shields, but they're more effective, or makes some of it shields, or adds shields on top, or something like that. And quality of life changes as well. The huge amount of changes will include a lot of simple shifts that are intended to be a net neutral for the characters. The gods will get a nerf to their healing, and they'll get some buffs to other parts of their kit to compensate. Yeah, that makes sense. However, there are quite a few changes across the update that are more likely to shift the meta and significantly change the viability of gods or items. Okay, after reading through this whole healing update thing, it sounds good, actually. I do kind of like this. Depending on how they implement it, you know, if the new items are really cool, you know, adding additional effects and stuff like that, it does sound like they're going to be moving towards shields, which I've been an advocate for a few years now in Smite, just making most, if not all, of the heals into shields, the big team heals anyway. You know, just increase the prevalence of shields in general over healing, because it's much more frustrating for someone to just disengage and either lifesteal up to full or health 3 up to full. If you add shielding in that regard, it's much more fun to play around and encourages combat rather than just disengaging and healing. So yeah, this sounds good. We'll have to see how it actually turns out in the full 10.3 patch notes, which are going to be dropping tomorrow. But I'm going to rate this like an 8 out of 10 so far. When I first started reading it, I was like, oh, don't like some of this, maybe 5 out of 10. But now, after I've read through it fully and, you know, the brawling system's gone, so this isn't really that big of an issue, I do kind of like this. This seems good. The Conquest gameplay features, though, are really good. Never had a problem with this as I was reading through it. The new art looks really cool, you know, just a slight change to the map. It doesn't look like it's going to be majorly changed or anything like that. Where is it? Yeah, especially around the 4 backhampy quadrants, making new entryways into those will make the flow of, like, moving around the jungle quite a bit better, I think. You know, especially this was really noticeable when you had a roaming happy and, like, you arrive, but then you kind of miss the roaming happy, and so you try and circle around the back, and you have to waste so much time, like, trying to catch up to or, like, cut off the roaming happy. Whereas if you have some more entranceways around that area, it's going to make it a lot easier to just pick off those roaming happies as you're moving through the jungle or back to lane or whatever. Yeah, really good. I like the look of this, man. You know, new stuff, good Conquest changes. The healer thing, depending on how it's actually like implemented in the patch, could be really good as well. Yeah, this looks sick. This looks sick. Super excited for the patch notes. Be sure to subscribe to the channel because I will be dropping a video, maybe 2, depending on what's changed. I might make like an entire video on the healing changes, to be honest, because that's a really huge thing. So 1 or 2 videos, maybe even 3, depending on how much like content there is in this new patch. I'll be dropping some videos on specific things for that. And yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down below on this Season of Hope closer look post. You know, what do you think about the healer changes and the Conquest changes and reduced snowballing, all that kind of stuff. And I will catch you guys in another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.